What up, guys? Joachim here, aka Joachim Justin Morgan, aka Joachim the Convert. And in this video, I want to talk a little bit about the topic of sexuality in the church, or sexuality as far as it involves Orthodox Christianity. And there have been a variety of different people speak on this topic, from Fordham University, who seems to nearly promote inclusion of sexually promiscuous acts and things that are outside the teachings of the church, to the other far extreme, to extremists that would go to very far distances to prevent anyone that is a homosexual from coming to the church. So those would represent far extremes, but I think there is truths on both sides. And I say both sides, please hear me out on that for a moment. Because somebody asked once to one of my spiritual teachers the question of, is it a sin for someone to be a homosexual? And this is a very different question than to say, is homosexuality, like the act of homosexuality, a sin? So, my teacher, being, very astute and being someone who analyzes the questions very closely, pointed that out and said that the act of having sex with someone outside the teachings of the church would be a sin, but for someone to be a homosexual, that is not a sin. That is not included within the teachings of the church. Like they don't address if the person is something. They address the acts of the person. So I think a great example of this is Father Seraphim Rose, who was a homosexual man. He was gay. And upon becoming an Orthodox Christian, he is the exemplification of someone who crucified their flesh. Not literally, but they subjected every part of their mind, of their thoughts, of their actions to Christ. And I think for a lot of Protestants that would encounter homosexuals in the church and people, they would have a very negative view, but they might have a view to the point where they say that it's God's will for you to overcome this. God wants to make you a heterosexual. God wants to give you the desire for women. And, at least in his case, that's not true. There's no record, there's nothing that I know of. I'm not like an expert on Father Seraphim, but there's never a time where it records or anyone says that I know of where he suddenly developed this attraction for women. Like, he didn't do that. He did, however, subject his mind to the authority of Christ, and the resulting of that is that he had no desire for sexuality or sexual intercourse with anyone. He chose to become a monk. And I guess that doesn't mean that he didn't desire it on some level, but I don't think that was his thought process. I think he was a very saintly man. If he was holy, if he became a saint and he was canonized as a saint in the church, I would not be surprised at all. He seems on all accounts to be very holy. So, for those of us who are lay people, who, I don't know if I think he was a father, so he must have been a priest. But, for those of us that are still subject to the normal fleshly desires of this world, whether that be money, power, sex, lust, any of the gluttony, the seven deadly sins or the passions, for those of us who still struggle against those things, not on the level of the saints, it might be difficult for us to identify with that. We assume that those very righteous, very godly men and women, that they struggle on the same level that we do. But I don't know that that's the case from their writings. I've not interacted with a ton of saints that I know of, but, from interacting with holy people that I have interacted with and met, I don't know that their struggles, the things that they fight against, is the same as the rest of us. The rest of us still struggle against these very earthly, very materialistic, fleshly things that exist in front of us, whereas, those very godly, righteous people, they struggle against things that are maybe more higher spiritually in some way. I don't know. I can't speak from the point of view of the saints. But, so I think that he is a very good example. He's somebody that overcame all of the desires of the flesh so that he could live the fullest to God. And I think that for those that are coming from an LGBTQ background, or that you struggle with those desires, he's someone that you can look to as a I don't know, a patron saint, maybe a patron saint, or somebody that is a good role model to look to. That doesn't mean that I'm saying you need to become a monk, but I am saying that there are certain designations for how men and women, as far as their sexuality goes, is blessed by the church. And even within the context of righteous marriage within the church, we still have to crucify our flesh and bring every thought that we have under the subjection of Christ in order to live to God. And I feel that that is a topic that's not often talked about when coming at this view. I think people have kind of beliefs or affiliations, or they have preferences or ways of looking at things, and the church often, even when they come to the church, like they're bringing these affiliations in, and they're affecting the way that they think of it. They're not thinking of it without bias. They bring a lot of bias with them. So that's several points of view, I think, that are relevant to that topic. The other aspect, though, that I think is very important to consider and very important to look at is the arguments that are made from the perspective of people saying that we need to accept love, why don't you accept my love? But a lot of the ways that we speak of love in this sense is not love. So when somebody says, oh, well, why is this person's love wrong? Well, it's not their love that's wrong. The idea that sex has to accompany love is perverse, manipulative, demonic, and disgusting. You can have love for all kinds of different people. That doesn't mean that there has to be that level of physical contact that is part and parcel to be love. So, love is something that is felt between people. That is something, Christ talks a lot about love, and Christ never had any relation. My kids just walked in, so. But, Christ had love for everyone. But, that physical contact that you're speaking of in this sense is not part of the gospel message. So I think it's manipulative and wicked to speak of love and with this accompanying physical aspect that sex should accompany love. Those are mutually exclusive things. You can love someone without having sex with them, and to point to such a topic and say that, there's a problem with their love, and then translate that to that meaning that the church is opposed, or that the church teaches against sexual contact in that way, that is disgusting and manipulative. And I think that people don't point that all out often enough. Just because two people love each other does not mean that they have to have sex with each other. I have love for lots of people, friends, family, my priest. I love these people. That doesn't mean that there has to be some kind of inappropriate physical contact between myself and those people. There are ways that the church does, allow that. I can give someone a hug. There's no problem. That doesn't have to be sexual. I can kiss them on all three, their cheeks 3 times. That's a normal tradition. I don't know what that's called, if there's a name for that. It's just something that, in the Orthodox Church, a lot of people do. You kiss somebody on I don't know which side. I know from my perspective, you kiss this way, or this way. It's the same either way. So I guess it's to your right, left, right, I think. Whatever, it doesn't matter. That is a physical way of contact that people have, that it happens often, but it's not sexual. And it's a way of expressing love, but it doesn't have to have those contrary false things as part of it. So I think, reviewing my points for this video, the fact that, we do have a very saintly, godly man that is part of the church who was a homosexual and repented of his sins, repented of his life, and lived fully to Christ in a way that everyone should attempt to do, the way that Father Seraphim Rose did. So that's something to consider and something to look on that I think is relevant to this point. My first point was that it is not necessarily the what a person is or how they what their desires, what they struggle against that is a sin is your actions. It is the things that you do that is a sin. And then my most recent point was the one about, that love doesn't equate to sexual activity between people. That's manipulative and demonic, and to try to paint it that way. So those are my views, and who am I? I'm just a regular layperson. I don't represent the church. I don't, other than the way that a layperson might represent the church. I'm not a priest. I'm not a deacon. I'm not a theologian. I'm not a bishop. So, take my words as with a grain of salt and for what they are, but that's my views on it, and that's how I read the fathers. That's how I read the teachings of the church. That's how I read the saints. So, marriage is a place we have, that type of physical contact within marriage and outside, and even within marriage, there are fasting times where we should abstain from that type of contact. So something to consider if you didn't know that before. It's just, I'm not saying that, we are exemplary models of fasting in every way, but, there are times and ways that people should abstain from things in order to promote more godly virtue and righteousness in their life. So you guys take it easy, and I will talk to you in a video coming very soon. Probably less controversial than this one.